Hi everyone and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today I have with me a fabulous lady who is now residing in Romania in Bucharest. She's originally from Moldova. Her name is Xenia, and I hope I pronounced her name correctly because the English are bad at foreign names. So it's apparently it's an X without the Z, Xenia. So Xenia Muntean is a fabulous lady who started a company called Planable because she started an agency and got so overwhelmed by trying to schedule content that she said, oh my God, I need to make this easier. So she did and started a company. She also went to Silicon Valley and got trained by Tim Draper. And she has clients such as Coca-Cola. She's been recognized as a Forbes 30 under 30 list. And we'll try and find out more what that really means. I think I'm on the Forbes over 60 list. Not quite sure what that means, but that's okay. Just means I'm a little older than Xenia, so that's fine. But I have been to Bucharest, Romania. It's a lovely city. There is a fabulous Folly building, which is the heaviest building in the world, I've heard, made of marble with 1,000 rooms. And to visit all those rooms would take you about a month. And I have actually been to that palace. So welcome to the show, Xenia. It's absolutely fabulous to have you here and find out more about Planable, which is the content planning platform that helps people save time to get their content out while creating content. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for such a great introduction, Jeff, and such a good review of Romania.
Well, I have been there, so it's in a previous life when the world was actually not upside down. So
ages ago.
Yeah, ages ago, when I think we maybe get to Mars before we get to Romania, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, true.
So, Xenia, tell me a little bit about what inspired you. What was the aha moment? I might start and ask a bit more. So what was the moment you went, oh my God, I don't want to be a digital agency anymore? Or you might be when, okay, I want to be in the digital space and then I don't want to be in digital agency anymore. So tell us how the entrepreneurial spirit sort of kicked off years ago.
It was totally 100% accidental, I have to say. It came from my own struggle and from my own frustration with the tools we were using back in my agency days. I was always passionate about the ad world. I was obsessed with it since I was a teenager, always aspiring to, sometimes work for a cool, hip ad agency at some point in time. And so it happened that I started my own one. But, a couple of years into it, I discovered that it's not as exciting as I thought, or it doesn't work as well for me particularly. I understood very quickly that the scale is just not there. You can grow an agency to to a particular point. It can become, the biggest agency in the country or potentially the biggest agency in the region, but still, you can't really scale it as much as you can with a software business. I had friends in the IT space. I'm not a technical co-founder, but I do have, lots of, friends that were building web apps back then. So I was very inspired by the work they were doing and by the fact that they could just put an app on the web and it was just touching, thousands and thousands of people. And that felt, amazing. And I was always kind of like thinking about this, considering it, maybe at some point in time, I'm going to start a software business, but I didn't have a plan when Planable started. So there was no strategy with it. That wasn't something intentional, really. It was just my own issue with the tools we were using. I just didn't enjoy working in spreadsheets on content. I felt like we were building this gorgeous, moving graphic content 4 clients back then, and we were just, locking it in those cells and trying to make it work as much as possible in spreadsheets and
Yep.
PowerPoints. I felt like my time was just being wasted in formatting spreadsheets and presenting decks. And PowerPoints were just killing my creativity and my inspiration. So I thought that there must be some tools out there to just help me collaborate with my team, but also help me get approvals and feedback from clients in a better way. I tried the usual suspects, Buffer and Hootsuite and Sprout Social and all of those guys, and they were doing a tremendous job on like the publishing and the scheduling and analytics and monitoring and all of that stuff. But when it came to the actual collaboration and the workflow that happened behind content publishing, I didn't feel like they were actually helping me. And just fate happened one day. I was participating in a hackathon. For those out there who don't know what hackathons are, it's basically a marathon for developers and product makers, where you go for 48 hours, you form a team on the spot with others in a competition. You form a team and you build a product, during a weekend. So I participated in this hackathon, and that's where I met my co-founder. We actually knew each other from before. Moldova is a tiny country, so we all know each other in the startup ecosystem. And he was pitching this idea of a collaboration tool for social media teams, because he was working in an agency back then, and he saw how his own colleagues were struggling with this work. And I was like, bingo, that solves it. That's, exactly what I was looking for. And, from one thing to another, fast forward, in about 6 months, I was closing my agency and, dedicating myself full time to Planable. And, as I mentioned, that wasn't something that was like totally an accident, just being at the right time in the right place.
Yeah, that quite often happens, doesn't it? So people sort of start on the journey, but you're moving in the direction. You were running a digital agency, you were creating content, publishing content, trying to schedule it, and you discovered a big problem. And the big problem was trying to manage content and get it published and get it promoted. And we all know that. So, the whole content marketing area became very complicated very quickly. So back in 2009, when I started jeffbullis.com, it was a Wild West. There were almost no tools, like seriously, almost no tools. You had to do everything manually. And I remember sort of doing a bit of automation back in about 2010. And I was publishing content without me manually posting it. And people said, how dare you? There's almost like a riot from my followers. So, because I'd realized early that you can't scale yourself if you're going to have to manually tweet and do LinkedIn posts and then do Facebook posts and going, I won't have a life, that I'll be just doing this 24/7. Then if you're a digital agency, then you're doing it for multiple clients. So you just can't get a bunch of monkeys posting stuff because they're going to get it wrong. Okay. And I'm talking about people. I'm talking about, just essentially trying to find ways to get things published, but manage it well. So you solved a big problem.
That's kind of the first problem that appeared with the rise of the social media platforms was the publishing and the scheduling, just automating the publishing side. That was the big first problem. And once that was solved, there was a rise in content, people producing more and more content because it was easier to publish it. You didn't have, you could automate it. And now the problem became a problem of coordinating that content, actually making sure that you're putting out good content that is on brand, that represents you, that is meaningful and valuable to your, to your audience. So, that's where we come in. We solve the next generation of problems for marketers, which is how do you manage this entire pipeline of content in a collaborative way? Especially if you're a big company, you have lots of people that are involved in the process of social media becoming more and more important in the marketing stack. You have various stakeholders that are, getting involved in the review process. So we kind of help them manage that.
Yeah, and that's very important because especially the bigger brands, they want to make sure they're controlling their brand message. That is being checked off by the brand police, I suppose we could call them.
Yes, 100%.
So,
and we've all seen this, accidents on social media. Those tweets happening. Like I think there was one at some point in time from
yeah, I'm sure there's someone said like, "My God, you posted a picture of a dog. That's not consistent with that brand. We want a picture of a cat." So,
so 100%. There must have happened.
Or maybe a bear. I don't know, but it's the reality is that that being on message for brands is very, very important. So let's just dive back a little bit into the accidental entrepreneur, accidental tech entrepreneur that you became because you ended up meeting someone at a hackathon in Moldova. So what were some of the challenges from there on? Because you said you're not tech, neither am I. So, and obviously your partner is tech. Is that correct?
Yeah. He is. Yeah.
So, what were some of the big problems you struck as? Okay, so great idea. Okay, here we go. Let's become a technology platform. So, and I'm sure there were some little hiccups along the way and challenges. So, tell a little bit about. So we're moving from inspiration to exasperation, maybe is a good way to describe it. So tell me some of the challenges.
Yeah, I can think of a few moments, a few episodes, or even a few chapters of exasperation, borderline desperation sometimes. I think the beginning was a lot of excitement and a lot of inspiration. It was really tough, a lot of challenges, just trying to figure out how to build the product, a lot of customer development, but it was all good. It was all, rainbows and unicorns, basically, or the hope of unicorns. But it was, it was really exciting. So I wouldn't say that was, even though it was difficult and we worked weekends but it was, we were hyped. So that was good. I think, the exasperation chapter started a while after, right? Like you're building the product for a year and a half, and you have, high hopes of when, of putting it on the market and having, great success, getting clients, getting traction, getting growing revenue. Mm-hmm. And when that doesn't really happen as you imagine that, and you imagine that for a very long time, you built those expectations for a year and a half while, putting your, sweat and energy and soul into that product. And when that doesn't happen as you expected it hits you very hard. And it also came in, after a particular episode of, very high, moments. We went through a very prestigious accelerator, probably the best accelerator in Europe, called Techstars in London. And, that's where we spent at least half a year. And that's, where we actually built the company. We received our first big investment. So there was a lot of pressure on us to put the product on the market and to prove product market fit and to also prove growth. And, that was the first time during the accelerator, after a year and a half of building the product, we took it out of beta and we introduced pricing. So that was the moment of truth, who is going to pay for this product? Let's see, what's going to happen. Exciting. Yay. No, that wasn't, definitely nothing like we expected. In the first day, we had a client, someone actually paid, we had a couple of hundreds of users testing the product. So one of them, actually took money out of their credit card, out of their wallet, and decided to give us money. And it was, $100 or something like that for a subscription for a year. So it was, not too much, but they paid for a year in advance. So wow, they are so committed to this product. That was, very,
Right.
that sounded like an optimistic start. Sounded very promising. But then it kind of slowed down. We were getting, maybe one client every couple of weeks. So we were hovering around a couple $100 in recurring revenue and subscriptions for a couple of months. And it was soul crushing
It would be.
to see that and not to be able to get, more clients, not to be able to market the product or sell the product in a good way. It felt like it was kind of like slowing down, slowly dying out. And it's funny, people, investors and, people in the startup ecosystem say that when startups die, they don't die with a bang. They, slowly crawl somewhere and die in silence.
Yep.
And I remember that thing, just stuck in my head. And myself saying to me that, okay, I must not crawl and die somewhere in silence, the startup, and I have to do something about it. And that was probably the toughest chapter we have, ever went through. Lots of challenges and difficulties, but I think, this one particularly, after, putting so much into it and not being able to make it work after such a long time, that was definitely the hardest one for me personally. I think for my co-founders as well.
So you're slowly feeling like you are just disappearing.
Yeah.
So what did you do to take the energy up and to grow the company after, like, basically almost just getting those 1 or 2 people a week? So what was the next step that you did to change the game?
Yeah. So first of all, we were running out of money, actually. So that, adding that on top of all the pressure,
Yep.
that was good. I could see, us running out of money in half a year. So first thing, I was thinking, okay, we need to work on, marketing. We need to put the product on the market, but we also need to figure out how can we, get some financing, some external financing to still. Yeah, I wasn't ready to give up. I can tell you that I definitely wasn't ready to just back up and go home. So the thing that we did is, you have to remember at that point in time we were ready to try anything. So this community called AppSumo, not sure if you heard about them.
AppSumo.
AppSumo, yes.
Yep, heard of them. Yep.
So they reached out to us. And for those out there who are not familiar with AppSumo, what they do is it's a kind of like a marketplace for products. But the thing is that you can buy a subscription to a product, a lifetime subscription, and you pay something like $39. So it's for very, very early stage companies and very early products, potentially buggy, not very stable, but you're kind of like, paying those $39 and supporting them very early on, hoping that they're going to develop the product and, it's going to get better and better, and you're going to have a lifetime access to it. So we were, ready to try anything at that point in time. We looked at the website. It didn't seem like too much, but then we Googled it and, we did a bit of research and read a bunch of articles about, from other founders that were raving about their experience with AppSumo and how they made, 300K from their deal on AppSumo. Okay, let's give it a try. For other founders listening to this that, don't know about AppSumo, the thing with AppSumo is that they have like 1 million, people in their database. So great audience, great promotion, but they do take like a huge cut. So they take 70% from the deal. So that it's a commitment. It's a decision that you have to make. And, we're ready to try anything, experiment with anything. So we did it. And in the first day, we weren't even on the website. They just sent a newsletter. And in the first day, we were crushed with traffic. And we had to do shifts of support just because, there were so many people interested in the product and buying it. Overall, I think we made something below 200K in the deal across a couple of weeks, just in a couple of weeks. Our cut was something like, 50K, 40K, but, that wasn't too bad. It was, an angel investment for us. And the unexpected thing about AppSumo was that all of those people that were happy with the product, that were excited about the product, tweeted about us, wrote the blog about us, told their friends about us. And so, when the deal was over, we started, we continued getting traction, and we saw, an uptick in subscriptions, in our own subscriptions, month by month subscriptions, the one we wanted. So, AppSumo created the snowball, this, word of mouth effect that actually kind of pushed us a little bit into the market and gave us a kick, and we started growing. And then, we hired a marketing team, and from there on, we never stopped going. And that was the beginning. It's probably not the beginning you want. We gave away a lot, but I would never regret it, because, we were not in a good position. And afterwards, our growth started.
So how many users do you have today, Xenia?
How many years?
How many customers do you have today?
Oh, how many customers? So we have something below 1,000, 900, I think, or something.
Right. Okay. And that's recurring revenue, so it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep.
I love SaaS businesses. Recurring revenue is the best.
Well, it's become it's become the business model, hasn't it, really? So
yes.
whether it's pay in advance for a year or whether you do month by month. But the big challenge in that marketplace is churn.
Yeah.
So and the other challenge in speaking to other founders is onboarding. So let's maybe talk about onboarding first, and then let's talk about churn.
Sure. I think onboarding is difficult because, though I've seen different models nowadays, onboarding with SaaS businesses is difficult because it's most of the times self-service. So you have to build a great product experience to guide the user through the process and help them understand, because you can't, we have 100 new customers probably every month, maybe a bit less, and we have to, and probably thousands of users signing up, so we can't handhold each one of them, and we can't actually do demos with every one of them. So the trick with the onboarding is to build a really, really good experience. And if you have a product that is very, very simple, ours is, we built it very intuitive from the beginning. You connect your social media accounts, and it generates it mirrors your feeds. So you connect your Facebook page, and you get your Facebook page. You're almost like on Facebook. So we do like a mock-up of your Facebook account, and you can see the posts that you have. So it's very, very intuitive. So if the product is very simple, it gives you an advantage, because people are going to, be able to onboard themselves faster. But I've seen, different models nowadays. For example, Superhuman, the email client app, they're doing it a bit different. Like, you can't test the product. There's no free trial. You pay and then you get a demo. So you pay for the first month. So you commit and then you get a demo. But that's because the product is so, exclusive, and you have to get an invitation to get access to it. And they're doing demos with every single user. And the product is a bit different as well, because you're using a lot of shortcuts and a lot of commands, and you need to know them. So it really depends on the product. For us, I think the self-service onboarding model works pretty well. And when it comes to churn, yes, retention is probably one of the most difficult things in the SaaS model, and especially for our pricing point. So we don't sell to enterprises. We don't have 5 clients. We have 1,000, and that means that there's a lot of small businesses. And even before COVID and coronavirus, um, you know, churn is just the thing that you live with in the business, in the B2B SaaS space. I've seen that the benchmark is somewhere around 5%. I think even Buffer has like 5% churn month over month. So it's very typical. There's no workaround. You just, you got to build a better product, improve it constantly, make it better. There's different techniques like potentially raising the price, going more up market, and that that will make you a bit more stable. But at the same time, there's downsides to working, having fewer clients. That doesn't give you the same stability. Like for us, the pandemic, when it hit us, we didn't lose that much because we have so many customers that if 10 leave, it doesn't make that much of an impact. But obviously if you work with more up market, if you have 10 customers and 1 leaves, that's a huge chunk of your business. So there's downsides to both of them.
Yeah, and churn is the big thing. And I remember talking to some of the founders like Agora Pulse, Emmerich, and the churn challenge was certainly a big one. Steve Rayson, with his company, so the subscription model is great, but you've got to make sure that you make it as easy as possible for people on board. And number 2, then you've got to make sure that people don't want to leave.
Yeah.
And Apple sort of has a pretty good model, and a lot of the apps is that maybe not that ethical, but trying to find where your subscription is not that easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I've seen the models in some other businesses, and I think I've seen recently this. It's very controversial. Like I wouldn't try it for our own business. No. Making it harder. Like you have to email us, right, to cancel. Yeah. We don't do that. I think it's you got to make it like if someone wants to leave, they're gonna leave. So we don't want to keep hostages at all.
Right.
And we're actually trying to make it. We're definitely implementing some churn techniques, like giving trying to give people discounts when they leave to get them back. There's all kinds of win back tactics that you could do, but in the end, if the product is not a good fit for someone, that's it.
Yep. There's something like I've been observing since in the last 10 years plus about software and development. And we're in an environment now where the cost of developing tools and also the monthly cost of the tools is very low. And also the speed at which you can put in place a tool. One really great example is the latest hot audio app at the moment, Clubhouse. Apparently, they built that in a week on Agora, which is a technology platform.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. But at the same time, I know that they raised like hundreds of millions. So you can probably do that in a week if you have the cash.
But they built it before that all happened, I think. So, yeah.
That's impressive then.
Yeah, certainly I think the tools that have emerged in the last 10 years. Look, I remember one of my second career after teaching was actually working in the PC industry. And you had a lot of software back then that wasn't in the cloud. You had to buy it, you had to unbox it, but to get the CDs out, you had to load it. If you're an enterprise, you had to load it on 1,000 computers. The whole distributed network was a pain in the ass, frankly. Whereas today, it's just done at scale globally by a software update, and it's all done over the internet. We've got broadband. Look, and now you've got the ability to upgrade a very complex, big piece of software very quickly. Well, I've just tested some 5G that's just been rolled out in Australia, and I hit a download speed of 750 megabits per second.
What? I am jealous. Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So it's the intersection of all these technologies that make it possible to roll out these new tools, manage distribution. And it's, and I've been lucky to be in this space for about, I wouldn't like to say really, but we're approaching 30. I think we're approaching 35 plus years. But it's very, very different. And we've got the intersection of mobile phones along with social media, which created the perfect storm.
There's also the wave of no-code apps that just empowers non-technical folks like me and you to build apps without any programming knowledge. And I think that's just a very new wave. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I've seen a few platforms like that.
Yeah, or maybe Clubhouse is done with Agora, which is Agora is a technology platform. So, but it's a bit mind-blowing to see, because what you can do, if you can do it at low cost, you can do it quickly. You can quickly find out whether the app works or not, whether it's a good fit to market. So, all right, so you've launched it, you've broken through by using AppSumo, and we've had partnerships with AppSumo over the years. So, and yeah, pretty cool the way they did things. I don't know how they're going today, but like with anything, the evolution of what we do changes so quickly that what's the big flavor today, the trend today can be next year can be just gone. So you've got to a point, you've broken through, and now you're trying to maintain it. So what are some of the other challenges, like managing the team, remote workforce? I suppose you've been a remote work environment pretty well from day one, wouldn't you?
Yes, we were. Although we actually recently went back to the office. I am a big fan of working from the office, to be honest. I don't do remote well for myself personally. And so it happened that the team, we're quite a small team still. So it happened that they're, big fans of working together as well. But, for a huge chunk of 2020, we definitely worked from home. And in terms of like challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges is, what you just mentioned, the fact that it becomes so easy to build products that there's an oversaturation of products on the market. Some of them great, some of them not too good, but the competition is fierce in marketing tech. And we were talking, before you started recording about the fact that there's just hundreds of softwares and in the marketing space, and there's this map that shows you all the logos of every marketing tech software, and it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming to for myself as a founder to look at that map and realize that I'm in such a crowded space. And it's overwhelming when you're fundraising as a founder to explain to investors the thing about marketing tech. I mean, it's a huge space. A bit deceiving. The map, it's kind of like, showing marketing tech is probably one of the biggest spaces, and there's a lot of room. And I think for us, we created this category of collaboration on content. And in that particular, pond, there's not that many fishes, though, how big can the pond get and so on. So I think that's a big struggle, just being in a competitive space and seeing how there's, new social media softwares popping up every year. Some of them just, slowly disappear. And I've seen, a bunch of, tools out there that were with us in the beginning and now they don't exist anymore. So it's just a matter of I think being in this space, you have to put some effort into not looking at your competitors and just minding your own business, building it, growing it, doing what you think, following your vision and doing what you think is important for your business, but at the same time doing that in mind with how can you stand out from the other? How can you stand out from competition? What can you do different in a good way?
Yeah. The other challenge I've certainly have struck over the years, both at our end, is access to the APIs and algorithms that control how you publish. Oh, I can see you rolling eyes. Okay. Yeah. And look, the challenge even comes down to publishing with paid promotions like Facebook, and getting things not approved because there's a policy within the organization that the ad you ran didn't have enough diversity. Now, diversity is great, okay, but the reality is not enough diversity. I've had ads banned through the API and the algorithms and the intelligence, so-called intelligence. Sometimes I call it dumb intelligence or lack of intelligence. Because we conflicted with New Zealand political laws or something. I'm going, no, we didn't even talk about New Zealand's politics, but yeah. So tell us a little bit about the challenges you've had with APIs and algorithms. I'd be interested.
That's a good question. I think we can talk for an extra hour this topic.
I can see the pain in your eyes, actually.
Yes. But talking about ads before I talk about APIs, it's so funny with ads. We've had numerous of our ads banned because how in the beginning when I was explaining the product, I mentioned that we mirror, when you connect a Facebook page, we mirror how it's going to look like. So we give you mock-ups of your posts so you can understand, how your content is going to look like in the end. So we help you see it while you're creating it. Well, when we were doing ads with our product and we were using, screenshots from our product, Facebook banned it, thinking that it was, that it was screenshots from Facebook.
Right.
So yes, because, we were mocking up posts, so it looked like a Facebook post. So they thought, and apparently you can't use ads that contain parts of Facebook. So you can't take a screenshot of something from Facebook and use it as an ad. They don't allow that for some reason. And, we've had so many of our ads banned. So we had to construct, our ads creatives in a way that is, a bit more abstract. So it doesn't look like Facebook. Then it's a huge issue for us. But talking about APIs,
And we'll explain what APIs mean to the people that maybe don't understand. It's application programming interface. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was just thinking what was the...
And to explain that simply, it just means that is the link to and connection to any platform. An API for Facebook is that's where you link to them, and there's certain rules about how you use that connection. So it's like trying to get two pipes to fit. And like my hands here, it could be like this, it could be like that. And they keep changing the rules. So that's my explanation of an API, is a communication between two platforms. And for example, you're trying to use the connection to publish your content on behalf of your clients to Facebook.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And the thing about APIs that I want to add is that they have certain features. So you can only do what they allow you to do. So they can, and most of the times they're pretty limited. So they don't allow you to do a lot of things. And with Facebook, since Cambridge Analytica, they, have cut out, portions of their APIs. And with Instagram, their API being much newer, it's even more limited. And it was limited by design for a while, meaning that Facebook didn't want third-party apps to be able to automatically publish content on Instagram. So that was, being able to schedule content on Instagram was the biggest request we ever had in our, in the history of our company, and the biggest bottleneck to our growth. It was downright painful for me as a founder to observe the hundreds of requests and tickets we were getting every year from our own customers, or it was painful to see how we were losing business, or how we were losing prospects, but also losing customers because they were uh, they wanted to have Instagram direct publishing. And the issue with Instagram direct publishing was the fact that you could do that on all the other platforms. You could do scheduling on Facebook, you could do scheduling on Twitter, on LinkedIn, but you couldn't do it on Instagram just because the API didn't have the feature, didn't have the functionality. And people couldn't, a lot of people couldn't really understand and grasp why Instagram particularly didn't have that. And that, as I mentioned, was by design, because, Facebook wanted to keep mobile, wanted to keep Instagram mobile and wanted to keep Instagram live on the go. So they didn't want, to have a lot of marketing automated on the platform. So they kept it by design. But a couple of years ago, they did release a functionality in their API to be able to schedule content, but they only released it to their marketing partners at the time. And we weren't a marketing partner. We were very early stage. And that was right before Cambridge Analytica happened. They released, a statement, a press release, we're going to have the API, and we're testing it with our partners, and then we're going to release it to the public, to all developers in a couple of weeks. Then Cambridge Analytica hit, and that was in 2017, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it's 2020, and they released the API a month ago.
Wow. Okay.
So it took them 3 years to actually release it. And all of those 3 years, we didn't just sit and wait, because, remember we were we were getting constant pressure from our audience to implement that. And now it was even harder because we had, there were other companies out there like Hootsuite and Sprout Social that were doing direct Agora Pulse. They were partners back then, being bigger companies, and they got access and they could do it now. So it was even more complicated to explain why we personally couldn't. And, together with us, a bunch of other smaller companies in the space that weren't marketing partners back then and didn't get access. And it just felt so unfair. And so, just not the level, it didn't feel like the playing field was leveled, and we knew we had to do something about it. And we realized, okay, you got to be a marketing partner. Let's become a marketing partner. So for a year, we prepared, we worked with our customers, we built case studies, we applied, I think, a couple of times. And finally, we became a Facebook marketing partner. And that was in 2018. So a year after we understood that we had to be a partner to get access to the API. And we were like, okay, now we're going to build this. We're going to launch it. We're going to release it. This is amazing. And that's when we learned from Facebook that they didn't give access to any new partners to the API. So they only left it to the companies that were partners at that point in time when they initially released it. And they didn't add any other companies. And there were, bigger companies like CoSchedule, for example, that probably became a partner a bit later on, and they didn't have access as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And, a bunch, of companies that were, and that felt even more unfair, just because we were all partners, but some of us didn't have access and others had. So we had to wait, another 2 years, and they finally released it just a month ago, and we implemented it, and everyone's happy. Our customers are happy. We got some customers back. We got some prospects back. And, finally this, we thought, finally this chapter is closed, right? But, no, because, building software on top of APIs is always going to be challenging because you always depend on someone else. Facebook can cut their API, can just downright close it at some point, and that is going to be, that can be deadly to a company. And you think, it's closed, and then, people are, we're releasing Instagram direct publishing. You cannot schedule photos and videos. We're expecting people to be very happy, and, users are picky. Well, how about the IGTV? How about stories? Obviously, Instagram doesn't have that feature. They don't have that functionality. But, maybe someday they're going to have it. So it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest type of SaaS businesses is the one that relies on APIs. But nowadays, lots of businesses rely on APIs. It's a huge space. So
yeah. No, it's fascinating. I remember I'm involved with a startup over the last 10 years, and we're having a discussion about we're generating 80% of our revenue through Facebook, and that made me very nervous. And I think whenever more than about 25% of your revenue comes through one source, or just like access to an API will minimize that revenue through your subscribers, you've got to be a bit nervous, because they can almost destroy you overnight by blocking or turning you off, or just not playing the game with you. And it's, I suppose, at the end of the day, it's understanding how business operates and not making sure that you are not too reliant upon any customer and any supplier. It's not only the customer, it's also the supplier. And
I agree with you 100%. And I think that inspired one of our decisions not to go into like analytics and monitoring and listening, because that would mean that we would entrench ourselves even more into the API. We would be even more dependent on the API. So we decided to go into the collaboration space more and more. So our vision is to build our product more into the productivity, workflow, collaboration space, and not develop, the social media management like analytics and publishing that much. So that, if Facebook ever cuts their API, our users would continue to use Planable for planning, for collaboration, for workflow, and not necessarily for the publishing and scheduling phase.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with the whole sort of, I suppose, AI space as well, in terms of content creation. A lot of news is being done by machines. AI that's scanning the web and turning into almost, you couldn't tell whether it's written by a human or written by a machine. And some of the bigger players have got the technology and tools and resources to do that, because it could cost you $10,000 a month to get access to the AI interface to do that. It's really interesting times, as AI being, I think at the moment, a blunt tool. Like a lot of even customer support is done by chat, done by AI or programmed. And I get really nervous going, I just want to speak to a human, really.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of hype about AI, though a lot of people are imagining it to be a bit, much more than it currently is. It might get to that point in time where it automates the higher end jobs, but I don't think it's there yet. I think
in the
near future, in the near future, it is going to automate the more robotic tasks. But looking at our own industry, it's nowhere near close to automating the creativity part. And I'm thinking, about because a lot of investors have asked us, well, do you have AI? And we don't, because we still think that content is a very human thing. Creating content is human. Reviewing content is human. Maybe there's going to be some kind of AI at some point in time that looks at copy and looks at content, and based on a set of keywords and a set of criterias, flags content that is not on brand. The thing that you mentioned, it's a dog, but it's not a cat, it's not a bear. Maybe it's gonna get there, but I don't think it's gonna, at least in the near future, it's not gonna get to the point where it's actually gonna create your content. And I think I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's we're at the I suppose the start of that revolution and evolution, and I think we're going to be very careful how we use those tools. And maybe we'll get to a stage where it's prescribed and written up as written by a human.
Wow.
So yeah, we're just still trying to work this out as we blend man and machine, and it's a fascinating time. So is there anything you'd like to share about the challenges for entrepreneurs in a software as a service company that you think people need to be aware of, whether they're thinking of starting one or are running one? What are a couple of sort of takeaways you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think a couple of takeaways, a couple of the things that we discussed is, the fact that a B2B or a SaaS business, subscription business, is just amazing because it has this scaling potential. You could literally reach, millions of people around the globe, but at the same time, getting started is hard, and not just because of the competition, but also it's just hard, getting clients, because it's, you need to know who your persona is. You need to know who your ideal user is, because it's just such a huge ocean you're fishing in. So, getting your first clients is the hardest thing. They joke that, getting your first million is the hardest, the hardest thing, but, it really is, getting to your first 1,000, clients is potentially one of the hardest things you are going to do if you're in the SaaS business. And then, churn, it's just a reality you're going to struggle with. But at the same time, I learned not to take it too personally. I was so impacted in the very early stages when someone was leaving. I was so anxious. And then the more we got clients, the more I realized that, there's literally nothing. It's just how business works. You definitely you need to find ways of improving it, but don't overwork yourself over it, because it's not, most of the times it's not something you can control. About competition, you have to forge your own path. Just because, and there's going to be a lot of pressure from your audience. If you're in a competitive business as we are, your users are always going to say, well, what about this company? What about the other company? Look what they're doing. I want, the thing that the other company has. And it's so easy to give in, so easy to build that feature, so easy to say yes to a prospect just to win their business. But then you're going to end up with, similarly to the competition that you don't like, those clunky softwares, those, huge, difficult softwares to use that at some point in time said yes to too many requests and built too many features. So saying no is hard, but you got to master it. I think that's one thing. And yeah, building your own path with, your own vision in mind, and not looking at the other competitors.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, don't look over your shoulder too much, but keep an eye on the future, and write your own story.
Exactly. You've been doing it so far, so you have to have confidence in yourself that you can do it in the future as well.
Exactly. Thanks, Xenia. It's been an absolute pleasure to see your smiling face and hear you and share your experiences and story. And well done. You must be very proud of what you've achieved, and also what your team's done, because it's a tough space. You're in a global market, and that's a great opportunity, but with that comes a lot of competition. So, but who's complaining? I'm not either. And we live in exciting times.
Exactly. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on the show. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you.
It's an absolute pleasure, and look forward to meeting in real life, maybe in Moldova or maybe Romania. So
I can't wait for that. We have great wine.
well, you got me at wine. That's fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the future. And you're playing in a space that's very exciting, and there's more to do, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.